no money, that's an asshole. It wasn't a phase.
Hello everybody, we're back with another episode of the Senior Citizen Podcast with someone that we saw briefly on the Backyard Bash, but now we get to have a full sit-down episode that I'm so happy about. Jesse Young, welcome officially to the Senior Citizen Podcast.
What's happening?
Not much. I mean, surviving, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I think when we talked for a little bit of a refresher, but in Backyard Bash, I think we went a little bit into how you got started as a musician. So we'll just do a refresher for the people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I just got, started, you have to play music when you're in middle school. So I started doing that, and then wanted to play drums really bad because I wanted to be a drummer. So my sophomore year of high school, I got a drum kit and got a guitar the same year for Christmas. And started playing drums.
That was a lucky Christmas.
Well, so the drums were given to me by a family, one of my cousins. He let me borrow his kit. Uh-huh. And I just turned out not to be very good at the drum set. I could play like every other percussion instrument, but not very great at the drums. I got better at the guitar and ended up starting a band with some college or some high school buddies. And then next thing you know, we're in college, and now I'm the lead singer of a band when that was never the intention. So we did that. We did 150 shows a year for 4 years at Michigan State, and
150 shows a year?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, by junior, senior year, we were doing 150 shows a year.
That's insane.
Every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, basically. And then we toured the East Coast every spring break and just play all the time. So
wow,
it was fun.
Wow, that's a lot of days out of the year. We got what, 365?
We played all the time. Yeah.
And did you end up going to college for music?
Nope. No, I actually majored in advertising, which is what I currently do. No, we just started a band and just played all over Michigan and the Midwest and anywhere else. Like I said, we go tour the East Coast on every spring break and go play colleges in Pennsylvania and just, again, anywhere that we could.
That sounds like so much fun. It
was. It's crazy because it was only a 4-year period that we were together as a band, but because we did so much in it, it feels like we were together 2-3 times longer.
Are you still connected with all those guys?
Yeah, everybody for the most part. The drummer and the bass player I still talk to pretty regularly. We had a couple of other guitar players that kind of rotated out. So the original guitar player I still talk to, and then some of the other guys maybe not as much. But in fact, the original drummer and the bass player, the last time I played Sunfest, they flew down and played with me.
Oh,
so
how
it's the
fun.
first time we had gotten together in like 10 or 12 years, which was a lot of fun.
And those friendships that last for so long are so cool.
Yeah.
Because you just see each other like grow and go through so many different stages of life. You got the drum set and the guitar high school. Did you ever go through like a scene emo phase? Was that a thing for you?
Not emo, but I mean, I've always been into that kind of stuff. Like I'm a singer-songwriter, so I feel like my kind of main thing is the acoustic guitar-driven type of stuff. But I feel like my secondary kind of scene was like the pop punk kind of emo stuff.
Okay.
Jimmy Eat World and Yellow Card and that kind of stuff. But I never I appreciate the music, but I never really
never dove into it, the style, all that stuff.
No, not the style, and never got into playing that kind of music as much as I would have liked to. I just didn't have anyone. My band, we were already doing our own thing, and so yeah, just never kind of went down that path. But I have a big appreciation for a lot of that music.
For sure. And it's funny how bands that you've mentioned, like the pop punk band Jimmy Eat World, Yellow Card, they have such an impact in the scene, because I'm certain that most modern pop punk bands, which are the ones that I adore, wouldn't be around if it wasn't for those guys.
Right. Yeah.
We have a generational gap a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, super cool. Have you gotten into modern pop punk?
Who do you define as modern?
The Wonder Years, Story So Far, Real Friends.
Real Friends, yeah. Just recently I kind of discovered them a little bit and downloaded a few of their songs. The Wonder Years, I've heard of them, but I don't think I've listened to them enough yet. Yeah, I probably need to be better about some of the newer bands. I'm still stuck into the older stuff like Boys Like Girls and something corporate.
The Boys Like Girls concert. Oh, we will talk about that. We've been talking about that. That was such a fantastic show.
I would have liked to have gone. Martin Johnson's awesome, and their new record is really, really good, so I would have liked to have seen some of that stuff live.
I love that their new stuff matured in such a great way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the oldies, great, they're always there, it's nostalgic, but the new stuff, it's like, wow, I genuinely like this. And it's hard for me to get into newer music. Sometimes they don't do the comeback right.
Right. There's been a lot of bands lately that I feel like have been making the comeback rounds, you know, that have been gone for maybe 10, 12, 15 years. Another band that I really like that was big in the late 90s called The Marvelous Three, which I don't know if you know who Butch Walker is. Butch Walker is a singer-songwriter, but he's also known for production, so he's done Weezer, Green Day, Fall Out Boy, Taylor Swift. He's a huge producer, but then he's also his, kind of his own artist. But his first band was called The Marvelous Three, and they were kind of like a pop punk, kind of Green Day-ish type of band back in the late 90s. And they just got together, and they've just done like 6 or 7 shows together in Atlanta and Chicago, and then they just put out a new album like 2 weeks ago. And it's good, you know, so it was nice to see them coming back again after 20 plus years and like still putting out some good stuff.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
There was a band over at Fest called Thursday. I don't know if you've
heard of them, yeah.
I had no idea who they were.
Okay.
All the people I was hanging out with were like, we have to go see Thursday, and I'm like, wow, I'm such a poser.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. I don't know if I know a lot of their music, but I definitely know who they are.
Apparently they're like an OG emo band, like something having to do, I mean, they tried to tell me at the moment, but obviously like it didn't register.
Well, I was watching your video about your recap of Fest, and there were some of the bands in there, like you mentioned that it's like a DIY type festival, and I'm like, why is Thursday and Less Than Jake and some of these other bands like there? Because they seemed, I was expecting more like very unknown type bands, and then I'm seeing some of these bands, I'm like, how are these guys DIY? Which I guess maybe now a lot of bands are, even if they're like super popular within the scene, they're not on major labels anymore, so I guess technically it is.
I think to some degree it's just the marketability of it too. Like, yes, it's a great festival, but if you have like kind of a big headliner, some more people might get a little bit more interested to come out. And the beautiful thing about it is that obviously that band is going to play 2 or 3 sets, but you have a whole weekend to come and find all these artists that are just playing in so many venues. It's such a great atmosphere.
How many fans were there total?
Oh, I don't even know. Like they literally had an app with a schedule that you can like mark down where you wanted to go at what moment, and it would like send you notifications because it was so hard to keep track of everything going on. It was at least, I want to say, about 10 venues playing at any given time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that festival, funny enough too either.
And I said it in the vlog too, I'm like, I'm in my own little bubble. I'm like the only one not the only one, but like I talk about it like, oh my god, everybody knows what this is, but it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, no, it sounds really cool.
And I'm out here promoting it. Come on, Fest. Come on, Tony. But no, it was a lot of fun. We were talking right before the interview started too that you do a lot of cover sets. Mm-hmm. I remember at the Backyard Pass you did a Taylor Swift cover, which was fantastic. Do you prefer playing? Well, I'm sure you prefer playing your originals.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can play a whole set of originals, if you're playing a show like that, then that means you probably have a bit more of a captive audience, and people are actually paying attention and listening. And I love doing that because it's an opportunity to win people over. So I always enjoyed that. Like, I used to love opening for bands and getting in front of a crowd that didn't know you, because again, if you could win them over, to me that was always really exciting. But covers are fun too. Doing an entire set of covers, it can be whatever it is. But sometimes the only reason I don't like that as much is because I like to try to take a cover and put my own little spin on it, and you can't do that with every single cover. Right. So if you're doing a 3-hour cover gig, like some of them have to be kind of the original way. And I prefer to take a song and change it up and make it a little different. Like the Taylor Swift, I play that on a lot of bars where people don't realize what it is at first. And my favorite thing is like looking on the crowd and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, that they're like, wait a second, I know this song. Yeah. And that's always super fun. So yeah, when I can take that, if I can get somebody ever to tell me that they like my version better than the original, or I didn't like that song, but I like the way that you do it, like that's always a great compliment. So
that's gotta be a big one. I didn't like that song, but the way you do it.
Yeah, I used to do Umbrella from Rihanna for a little bit, like a long time ago. And I had, again, kind of a much different take on it. And I had a couple of people come to me and say that they didn't ever really like that song, but they liked the way that I played it.
I think Retail ruined that song for me.
Yeah, it's a great song, but some songs can get overplayed, and then you kind of get tired
super
of them.
Sick of it,
yeah. So again, just try to find a song like that's super popular, but that you can do a little bit differently and get people to look at it in a different way. That's always fun.
What's your favorite song to cover at the moment? Could be today.
Well, I mean, You Can Call Me Out by Paul Simon is, that's been kind of like my cover. I actually recorded it on my new album. It's the first cover I've ever recorded. I started doing that when I played Sunfest for the first time back in 2009, and it's been pretty much like I close every set with it. So I feel like that's like I have ownership over that song in a sense. Like that's my cover.
Right.
And then I'm trying to think of what else. There's a Def Leppard song I cover, which is a lot of fun. 1979 with the Smashing Pumpkins is a lot of fun to cover.
Okay.
And then I just started learning an old Bare Naked Ladies song, which has been super fun to play. And so I don't know, it kind of changes.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's why I say like today, what are you feeling? Because like tomorrow, it's like I don't feel like any of those right now.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's my train of thought. Oh, when you were mentioning that you would love like captivating the audience when you open up for bigger bands, it's funny because that happened to me exactly at Boys Like Girls. Their opener was this girl named Lolo.
Okay.
I kind of checked out their music because I check out set lists before I go to concerts. Yeah. I don't know about you.
I do.
Apparently it's frowned upon. So I said it to someone at Paramore and they were like, "How could you?" And I'm like, I need to know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. Setlist.fm is my best friend.
Exactly. And now you can just like go straight to like a playlist on Spotify to check it out. So when obviously the Boys Like Girls section ended, it went up to the beginning, which was Lolo. And I kind of heard some of the songs. So I was like, oh, I like this, whatever. But then seeing her live, I was like, wow, I really like this. Probably one of, like, in my Spotify rap, it's going to be one of my favorite artists this year. I can already tell.
Yeah, I think, that's always the neat thing, too, is if you listen to somebody and then you see them live and they're even better, and they kind of, you're like, I kind of like them, but then you go see them and they're much better. Random story, again, probably not a band that you've heard of, but a long time ago when I was in college, there was this band out of Chicago, kind of a pop punk band called Lucky Boys Confusion. And we got asked to open for them at Michigan State. I'd never heard of them before, so I was listening to one of their songs. I was in like a House of Blues or a Planet Hollywood or a Hard Rock Cafe or something like that, and their music happened to be like in the little jukebox thing. So I like clicked on the song and listened to it, and I was like, man, I don't like this. Yeah. These are the guys we have to go open for. Was not excited. We get to the show, we walk out, singer was there like playing his guitar in front of the venue, really nice guy. Meet all the band, they're super friendly, we sound check, we do our set, they were super complimentary of us. They played, they were unbelievable live, like really, really good. And then they were super nice guys. Ended up coming back to our apartment because I lived right across the street from the venue. We hung out with them and, kind of developed a little bit of a friendship. And then like, again, after seeing them live, like it just blew me away that, they became one of my favorite bands. So the live show can completely change your opinion of a band easily. It
can change your perspective. Because for me, Boys Like Girls too, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, they're making a comeback, and I bought tickets to go. But I wasn't going in expecting what I was going to get out of it, because I walked out and I'm like, this is one of my favorite bands right now.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
Seeing them live, the stage presence, the interaction, I think it was 2 hours of straight music. Like, he did not stop.
Yeah, he's great. I've always liked Boys Like Girls ever since they came out, and then I was telling you I really like his side project, The Night Game, and I saw them open for John Mayer a couple of years ago, and they were fantastic. So I have no doubt that this incarnation of Boys Like Girls is great as well.
No, and the energy from the crowd. Like when they went to go play the Great Escape, he played the first verse. Stage went black, and then it goes, all right, put your phones away. I don't want to see any phones out here. This is 2007. I want you guys crowd surfing, jumping, dancing, and started the song over.
Oh, that's cool.
Beautiful moment.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to jump a little bit into, because I creeped on your profile, that you're actually adopted.
I am.
So, it's one of those things. And with no offense, with all due respect, it's like one of those things that you hear about, and then when you see an actual person, it's like, oh yeah, I've been adopted, and my adoptive parents were great, and all that stuff. Like, how's that affected your music, you growing up?
Well, it's funny. I mean, my parents, I've known I was adopted since I was like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So it was never anything that they kept hidden from me or anything. So to me, it was never weird. It was never odd. It was just a thing. And honestly, as I got older, it was never a thing that I thought about. So I would forget about it all the time until somehow it would come up and somebody would say something and be like, oh yeah, I'm adopted. And then when I would tell people in high school, like, people didn't believe me.
Right.
And they'd be like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. And I was like, why would I make that up? Like, is that something that would make me cooler in your eyes to say I'm adopted?
Kids do all kinds of
shit. Yeah. So it was really strange. People were always very surprised by it. I've had people tell me they think I look like my dad. And he's got black hair, or had black hair. He's got gray hair now, obviously, but he had black hair. I've always had darker blondish type of hair, and I'm 6'5", and he's maybe like 5'11", 5'12". So he likes to say 5'12" for 6 foot. That's what he always said when I was growing up. But
That's funny.
my dad's like the king of the bad jokes.
Right.
Like the dad jokes.
The dad
That's
jokes?
my father. Yeah, he's retired now. He's a former pilot, but I told him he needs to get a job on the Jungle Cruise at Disney because like he fits in with those jokes. Like we'll be on the Jungle Cruise and he's telling that like
he's the
skipper
entertainment.
the jokes. Yeah, and I'm like, Dad, nobody wants to hear this. Like they get paid
That's
for a reason. Calm down.
fantastic.
But yeah, I mean, I wrote a few songs about it when I was, in my band, and then I wrote a song on this album I did in 2019 because I had written songs about like my birth mother and kind of wondering like why did you go through this and all that, kind of like the dumb, young, angsty, how could you give me up kind of a thing. Even though honestly, like I never really had much of an interest in like finding them.
You never met your biological
No, I don't know anything
parents.
about them.
Okay.
I never really had much of a desire to be honest with you.
I get that. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I guess, again, you're in your 20s or whatever, you just kind of write songs like that for whatever reason. But
I think it might have been therapy to some
Maybe.
degree to get your emotions out. Cause
Yeah.
fair enough, it's something big.
And then in 2018, 2019, when I was working on this album, I was trying to write songs different than like love songs and all this other stuff. And I realized I had never really written a song to kind of say thank you to my birth parents for adopting me because, if it hadn't been for them, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, could be in a much worse situation. They gave me a pretty good life. So I wrote the song called I Belong, and that was kind of dedicated to them. And then I made a music video for it. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did, and that's what made me tear up, and that's why I mentioned it.
So that was for National Adoption Day. I released it, which actually is coming up in a couple of weeks again. So I need to make sure to remember to like post on it. I'm terrible at sometimes remembering like when I have to like post things.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago, I was gonna post because it was like the 2-year anniversary of like one of my EPs, or it was like one of the songs came out, the video for it, and I was like, all right, I got to do that on Saturday, and then Sunday morning, I'm like, oh, I forgot to post that yesterday. Good job. So I'll try to remember that this year.
I'm equally bad at that too, like remembering to post things, and it sucks even more because I'm a social media manager. So it was like, oh, we had a holiday, that's great. I have no graphics for this.
Yeah.
When you say that people say that you look like your dad, I think the more time you spend with a person, you just kind of end up looking like them. Also, kind of like how pets look like their owners too.
Yeah.
It's like you just.
Well, it's the whole nature versus nurture thing, right?
Yeah, you vibe in a certain way, and you end up kind of looking alike.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got a lot of my sensibilities from my parents from being with them for so long. So obviously, I probably got my height and some certain things like that from my biological parents, but everything else came from them. So again, they're my parents. I've never known anything different. So.
What was their reaction to hearing "I Belong"?
I don't know that it was as good as I wanted it to be. I guess you feel like maybe something like that would be like a lot more waterworks than there were. But I mean, they liked it and they were happy with it. Maybe they were keeping some of that stuff inside and weren't kind of really being outward with it. But I think they were just proud, probably.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Not overly sentimental over here.
Yeah.
But it's nice to externalize that, to say thank you. It was a beautiful song. I did see that music video, and it was one of those things that I think separated you from other artists in my eyes. Not because like, oh, I'm adopted or there's a stigma in it around it, because maybe that's why kids in high school were like, oh no, you're not. Like,
right.
But yeah, I think it just, there's a lot of different feeling to different songs because of how a person was brought up or whatever their life circumstances were.
Right.
So yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your original work.
Yeah.
When we talked at the Backyard Bash, I think you had just dropped the EP album.
Yeah, I think that was maybe right around there, because Backyard Bash was May, right?
Maybe.
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember. I know it's been a minute, but yeah, I think, and I'm terrible too about when that album came out, because I was working on it for so long. So it was either April or May. I think that the album officially came out, and it might have been a week or two later, or a week or two after Backyard Bash. But yeah, right around that time, the album "Something to Say" kind of came out, and yeah.
How was writing it? Where did the inspiration come from?
I wasn't going to do another record, honestly. Like, we did an album in 2019 with my producer Zach, and I just assumed that was going to be, it. And you never know when you're going to work on the next thing. And then we get into COVID and lockdown, and you can't really do a whole lot. And so it was October of 2020, and I had this one song idea, and I sent it to him, and he really liked it. And I was like, well, let's just record it. Like, we can at least do that, because we do everything like remotely. That's kind of the nice thing about technology now. He records a lot of stuff at his house. My bass player is in California. I've been using drummers in Nashville for the last few years. And so we didn't have to really, like, him and I could get in the studio, and just him and I, and felt comfortable in order to do that back at that time. So we went in to just do one song, and then the week we were gonna go in, I had another idea. So I sent it to him, and I was like, I think we gotta do this song too. So we went in to do 2 songs, and then as we were working on that, by the time I went back to record vocals after all the music was done, I had 2 other ones. And so it was like, let me just lay down the guitars for these, and then we'll send them to the drummers, and let's just keep working. And then that just started the process, because every time I went to go do vocals to finish the songs, I kind of had 2 more ready to go. And so we just kind of kept them going like that. And then we were trying to figure out, well, how should we release it, and decided that it was probably best to release them as like singles or whatever, rather than like releasing the whole album. So I decided to release them in pairs, and I kind of wanted to do like albums that had a connection, like with the graphic design and everything. And so I called the series duos, and I kind of wanted to almost treat it like a movie. Like, all the artwork kind of had a movie poster vibe to it. And I went for like a horror movie vibe, because I love the horror genre. And I also thought too, like, there's always like a million sequels to all these horror movies, and they never kind of like end. And that was kind of the thought, was like, maybe this would never end, and I would just keep doing that. So we did duos volume 1, 2, 3, 4. So it was my attempt at making like music sequels, like the way that they do it in movies. You don't really see that too much in music. Yeah, and you're like at Scream 10 at this point. Right, yeah. So that's why, like, the third one, volume 3, it has a kind of the 3D glasses look to it. And I did that because, like, back in the 80s, when you had like Friday the 13th Part 3 and Jaws 3D and all these, like, 3D movies were huge. They all had like that 3D glasses look and all of that, and so I felt like, well, the third one's got to have a 3D thing as a nod to that. And then like number 4, I think we called the final chapter, because there's like a bunch of those horror movies that were like the final chapter, but then they would make another one, and like Friday the 13th, they had a final chapter, and then the next one was a new beginning. Right. And so it was like, you think it's over, but then they just keep finding ways to keep doing it. And so again, that was like my dumb sense of humor, to be like my little joke of, we're going to say that it's the final one, but then I was going to do volume 5, which was going to be like a new beginning or whatever. And then ultimately I decided not to do that. I decided to save those couple of songs, so that way when the album came out, it had a handful of songs that people hadn't heard before. Yeah, that's how most artists are doing, dropping just a couple singles, and then you get the whole. Yeah, I don't love the new thing with Spotify where like you have to release singles all the time, and I don't really love, like, I think I told you, like with Boys Like Girls, like they were releasing a handful of songs, and I stopped listening. You didn't listen to them, because I really like listening to an album for the first time and not knowing what's coming next. And there have been a lot of albums where I'm listening to it and I'm like, I've already heard half of these songs, and by that point, by the time the album comes out, I've already worn the heck out of those other songs. I don't really want to listen to them, so then I'm skipping it, and then it just kind of loses ruins the album experience. You know the band, the 1975? Yes. Okay, so one of my favorite bands, and I remember they put out an album a couple years ago, and I got to a song on that, and I hadn't heard it. I don't know if they had released it or whatever. It's called She's American, and I was just blown away by it, because it's a great song, but again, it wasn't like I hadn't heard it, and it was just like track 4 or 5 or something, so it was a little bit further in, and I don't know, it wasn't a song that I wasn't expecting, and so I love to be surprised by like a really great song that they haven't like put out. That's the ultimate test of self-control, because when I see a band that I really like dropping singles or something, as Boys Like Girls, one day this was their comeback and here's a single and everybody's really excited listening to it. So props to you for having that self-control, because it could not be me. It's hard. I want to listen to them because I'm always looking for new music. Like I listen to stuff a lot for like several weeks, and then I'm moving on to something new.
Right.
And then I'll go back and listen. You know, I have a playlist of all my favorite songs, and I'll just put it on shuffle just so everything comes up randomly. But yeah, it was hard not to do it. But I listened to Blood and Sugar and Language, and then I was like, all right, I don't want to listen to the others.
And I think Language is probably one of my favorite songs off of that whole track.
It's really good. New Love is also very good. It's another one of my favorites.
The entire thing is like a masterpiece. In its entirety, it's like I love the album.
And that's what I love the album experience. Honestly, like having a cohesive body of work that has a certain flow to it. Like I really appreciate that, and I love the bands that used to do that. I've never been a big fan of like making a playlist of like
random stuff.
Random just of like one-off songs by a bunch of different artists. Like I love to listen to bands that like their entire album is good, and I like when a band like the songs that weren't the singles are better than the songs that were on the radio.
And then you can cry because they're never going to play them live.
Some of them, yeah. But so I miss that. I feel like a lot of bands are just like trying to put out singles all the time, and then, you know, I still appreciate an album. So I like to listen to things from front to start. I don't like to listen to one else, unless I'm just putting my entire playlist of all the songs that I like on shuffle just to kind of change it up. But
I sometimes do the shuffle playlist to figure out what mood I'm in, and then something will come up and it's like, yeah, that album is what I want to jump back into, and then I'll play that.
I'll have that happen if somebody comes up and that I haven't heard in a while. I was like, ooh, I kind of want to listen to this whole album right now.
Yeah.
And I'll switch back off of it.
Yeah, especially like for long car rides and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
What you did was something to say. I think it's fun. I mean, it's great how when you get into like that creative space, and as soon as you started telling me the story, I was like, oh, you told me this. You like speed ran through like recording all this stuff. But it's so cool how when you get into like that creative mind space, it just keeps flowing out and out and out, no matter like what your whatever your art is, really. Great album. I love the little graphics too. Obviously I saw them all when I was like looking through your profile and stuff. Like in my mind, I almost couldn't even remember the album name, but I remember the typewriter.
Yeah, that one was neat. Actually, my friend Brian designed all that, and he does a lot of work with major label artists and, you know, TV commercials and things like that. And he's super talented, and I was super happy that he agreed to do stuff for me, that he had took the time out to do it, because he just did a great job with all the album artwork. And what's really cool about that typewriter, so that was like a stock photo that he found online, and he obviously, you know, changed the keys in graphics to put my title on it. But we did a lyric video for the single, and he shot it you know, in Chicago. So he actually found that exact typewriter. Somebody had it on eBay in Japan, and we bought it for like $50 or something like that, shipped it from Japan to Chicago, and then he shot the music video on that typewriter, and so it had a nice tie into it, and yeah, it was really cool. That like it was the exact same one that was on the cover, which happened to be just a random stock photo. So it's kind of amazing that he found it online.
Thanks, eBay.
Yeah.
And the other thing I remember you telling me is that you would just contact artists that you really wanted to work with, and it was like, hey, do you want to work with me on this? And they were like, yeah, why not? And I told you,
not so much on this one. Well, actually, one of them on this one. But yeah, the one before that, I had a bunch of guests, because again, the one in 2019, it was the first time I'd ever done a full length. So I was like, I kind of want it to be special. So I asked a bunch of friends and musicians that I played with back in Michigan and other places to sing on it. And then this one, I was trying to get more people to guest. I just didn't have as much luck this time around. But on that song, Holding Back, I got this guy that was in a band that I was a huge fan of in high school and college. They were a major label band called Athenaeum, and the lead singer agreed to sing on that tune. And then we kind of went through a couple different versions of the solo. Originally it was a guitar solo my producer didn't think it had the right vibe, so I was like, what about saxophone? So I got a sax player buddy to play sax. I thought it was sounding great, kind of passed it around a bunch of people and got feedback that didn't really have the right vibe either. So we said, well, let's try another guitar solo. And I reached out to a guitar player that I know who's, have you ever heard of Edwin McCain?
No.
So he's this old singer-songwriter. He had a huge hit called I'll Be back in the late 90s. I'm sure you've seen it in movie trailers and all that kind of stuff. But,
maybe.
Larry's been his guitar player forever.
Oh.
And so I got him to play the lead solo on that song. So that was kind of cool. Again, two musicians that I've been fans of for years and years, and so to have them playing on something that I worked on was was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna lead into from that is like, okay, you've worked with these people, musicians that you loved and respect. Who would you want to work with? Like, who's that goal person to collaborate with, to get in the studio with, or even just remotely?
Well, I mentioned Butch Walker. He's probably up there at the top of my list. He's just one of my favorite, always been one of my favorite artists, and I think he's a great producer. And then if it could have been anybody at some point, I mean, Phil Collins is my favorite songwriter, so like to have gotten to do something with him probably would have been, pretty amazing.
So my brother's uncle, whenever he would throw a big barbecue, they just blast Phil Collins on the speakers. So nothing better than Phil Collins on some good steak.
Yeah, no, he's my favorite. I just think he's like, just his songwriting is incredible. You think of all the songs that he has hits under his name, and how many songs he had as hits with Genesis, plus the Tarzan soundtrack, which is
Have you ever seen the memes that are like, Phil Collins, we need a Tarzan soundtrack, and then the piano's like on fire?
I just see all these people that are like, Phil Collins didn't have to go so hard on the Tarzan soundtrack.
That, basically.
And I was like, well, that's what you get when you hire Phil Collins. He's going to give you nothing but the best. So.
Yep. So we've hit the point in the episode where I'm asking for relationship advice. You are a married man, so hopefully we will get some good advice from you. I know Ricky's married too, but I didn't trust it from him. This one's kind of dark. I'm gonna be real with you. It's a little dark, but let's see what your take on it is.
Okay.
So I, a 30-year-old female, unintentionally cheated on my boyfriend during a spontaneous meth binge, and now I don't know how to break it to him.
Same.
I've just unintentionally cheated on someone who genuinely loves me, and I struggle with love thanks to trauma and my ex. So they were back with their ex, I guess, and then they had a meth sesh, and they were pressured into sex. I feel guilt and shame to the point of another psych admission, and her current boyfriend told her that he worries about her cheating. She's also been on meds since like 8 for ADHD, and it's kind of messy.
I mean, some of that stuff, it's hard to say that like it's all completely out of your control, because obviously, everything should be within your control, but I don't know. I feel like at some point just having open honesty is probably the best way to go, and you're just going to have to let the chips fall where they may at that point, because if you try to hide it and then it ends up coming out, that's just going to end even worse than that, depending, I don't know how long they've been in the relationship or, how serious it is, but, if you're really meant to be with that person, and if you really have like a close connection, then yeah, obviously it's not a great thing, and, he might have some difficulty with that, but I think if you can be honest about it, be remorseful and, all that kind of stuff, then maybe there's a pathway that you can work through that, but there's no way that's going to happen if you try to hide it, go lie about it, whatever. Eventually that's going to catch up to you. Either he's going to find out, or eventually the guilt eats away at you and you end up spilling the beans, and I just think, that's going to end up being bad. So as much as it might be difficult to like have that conversation and admit that, and, fear the worst of, well, this could be it, I think you just got to do it, because either the relationship has a chance to heal and move on and go and get past it, or it ends, but at least then you could be like, not that she did the wrong thing by the cheating, but at least she did the right thing by like handling the situation and admitting to the mistake and trying to own that.
Right.
Because I think at the end of the day, you just, listen, we all make mistakes, and nobody's perfect. You just got to own like my wife would say, own your shit.
I obviously read it a little earlier, and I had a little bit more time to ponder on it, and the one thing that like stuck out to me is that she said she was pressured into having sex. So in my eyes, it's kind of like maybe doing the meth was the bad decision. Because if you're pressured into sex, and to some degree that is rape, and you weren't in a consenting like state of mind.
Right.
So I think I'll understand if he's a good dude. Just honesty is your best policy at that point. And it's just not to take it as like outright cheating. I think it's more of a bad decision under certain substances.
Yeah, and you gotta know like what your pressure points are, and if you know that, hey, I don't make the best decisions when I do meth, maybe don't do that.
Right. It could be a little hard to maybe not talking from experience. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Jesse, this is your shameless plug moment. Go ahead and let everybody know what you would want them to know about you, about upcoming music, tours, anything.
Yeah, I mean, just, I'd love everyone to give the album a chance, it's called Something to Say, or even the last one, Heart of Me. I'm really proud of both of those records, so just I want as many people to hear them as possible. I think a lot of musicians always feel like they're getting better, but I think a lot of fans sometimes feel like the original stuff, the first couple albums, are always the best. But like, I genuinely believe that I've been doing this 20 plus years, whatever, that these songs are the best songs that I've ever written. So, I want to make sure as many people hear them as possible. So just go listen to those and, follow me on social media and, try to play a little bit here and there. I'm trying to get back into playing a little bit more often. So when I'm out and about, come to a bar and hang out so I'm not by myself, just doing nothing.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
I love your work, your vibe. You're a great dude.
Thank you.
And I really wish you the best. I can't wait to hear more stuff from you too.
Cool.
And yeah, thank you for coming on the Senior Citizen Podcast. You guys subscribe and we will catch you on another episode next week.